Let's start off here by analyzing the problem. So it tells us that we've got various hold times, excuse me, for callers, and that it's normally distributed, which means if you were to line up all of those hold times, they would follow a normal curve. It has a mean of 7 minutes, which means right there in the middle of the normal curve would be that 7, that average wait time, and a standard deviation of 1 minute. So it would like us to determine the percent of callers who are on hold between 6.1 minutes. So 6.1 minutes is less than the average of 7. So 6.1 minutes, if we graphed it, would be over here to the left of the normal curve because it's less than 7 minutes. And they also want us to find the percent that's between that 6.1 and 7.8 minutes. So because 7.8 minutes is greater than the average, that means that it's going to fall over to the right-hand side of the normal curve because it's going to be on the right-hand side of the average. Now, in order to be able to find those percentages that we're being asked for, we're going to have to turn these numbers, the 6.1 and the 7.8, into z-scores. And remember how you find a z-score. It's the value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. So I'm going to find the z-score of the 6.1 first. So 6.1. The mean is 7.0, but I can just use 7. And standard deviation is given as 1.1, but I can just leave that as 1. So 6.1 minus 7 is negative 0.9. Negative 0.9 divided by 1 is negative 0.9. And it's very reasonable that we got a negative z-score because, again, that 6.1 is less than the mean, which means it's to the left of the mean, which means that it is going to have a negative z-score. So now let's find the z-score for the 7.8. So 7.8 minus 7 divided by 1 is going to give us 0.8 divided by 1. 0.8 divided by 1 is still just 0.8. So again, it makes sense that we got a positive z-score because 7.8 is larger than the mean of 7 minutes. So it's going to be on the right-hand side of the normal curve. So how does this translate into helping us to solve the problem? So the problem was asking us to find the percentage of callers who are on hold between those two wait times. So we're trying to find the percent of the normal curve that falls in between these two z-scores on the normal curve. So in order to do that, we're going to need those z-score tables that are shown in the textbook. I need to look at my first z-score, which is, of course, negative 0.9. So I'm going to go to the table. I'm going to find the value of negative 0.9 and find the z-score that is right next to it, that 0.1841. Now, remember what this 0.1841 tells you. This is saying the area under the curve to the left of z. So in other words, that z-score represents the percentage of values that are over here to the left of 0.9. And of course, 0.18, let me make sure I write this down right, 1841 is the same thing as 18.41%. So 18.41% of the hold times were even smaller than the one associated with this z-score, which was originally what? So 6.1 minutes. That means that 18.41% of people that call in, their wait time was even less than the 6.1 minutes that negative z-score represents. Now we need to look at the z-score for the positive 8. I'm going to go right here. I see next to the positive. So I'm doing table 2. Remember, table 2 is the one where the positive z-scores are. So right here, I have 0.7881. So what does that mean? Again, the z-score table tells you the area under the curve to the left of that z-score. So that is telling you that 0.7881, or in other words, 78.81% of the people that called into the call center had a wait time that was less than that 7.8 minutes that is associated with that z-score. Now we need the space, according to the question, we want the amount that's in between these two wait times. So that means what we're going to have to do is take this 78.81 and subtract out of it the blue, so 18.41, and that will tell us the space that is left over here in between. So if I do that, so subtracting that gives us 60.4. So that means that 60.4% of the callers that were on hold fell in between those two time periods. Now, sometimes some people will keep that 0 there on the end, say 60.40%. Really means the same thing. I like to make it as short and sweet as possible, so 60.4 works for me.